Good afternoon, and thank you all for attending our monthly webinar. As Helen just noted, I'm Victoria Melendez, a JASA Program Committee member, working alongside Amy Poster and Allison Tolman. For those of you who are new to JASA, the organization is a volunteer and member-led group that promotes the study and appreciation of Japanese art and culture. In addition to having the opportunity to attend in-person events and trips, our members also receive a copy of the beautiful and scholarly JASA publication entitled Impressions, which is published twice per year. Now, without further ado, please allow me to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Monika Binsick, the Diane and Arthur Abbey Curator for Japanese Decorative Arts at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Dr. Binsick curated the current exhibition entitled The Infinite Artistry of Japanese Ceramics in the Arts of Japan galleries of the museum. She led a popular in-person tour in February for JASA members, and because we wanted to make sure that all of our members would have the opportunity to hear Dr. Binsick discuss the exhibition, she has generously agreed to provide this webinar for members who could not attend the tour. The galleries reopened in January after a 4-month renovation with this new exhibition, which will be on view until August 8th, 2027, in 3 rotations. Much of the selection is drawn from the Harry Packard collection, presented in honor of the 50th anniversary of its landmark acquisition. I would like to note that the current issue of the journal Impressions is entitled Harry Packard, The Infinite Artistry of Japanese Ceramics, and is dedicated to this exhibition. The publication is edited by Julia Meach, who is also the Assistant Curator for Japanese Art at the Met in 1975 and was instrumental in the Met's acquisition of the Packard collection. In addition to this exhibition, Dr. Binsick has organized numerous exhibitions for the museum, notably Kimono Style, the John C. Weber collection in 2022, Kyoto, Capital of Artistic Imagination in 2019, Japanese Bamboo Art, the Abbey Collection in 2017, and Discovering Japanese Art, American Collectors at the Met in 2015. She has published extensively on Japanese decorative arts and collecting history, which we list in our announcement, including articles in the current issue of Impressions. Thank you, Dr. Binsick.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Victoria. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for the kind invitation. It is my great pleasure to introduce the exhibition to the JASA audiences. Let me begin by mentioning that the Japan galleries at the Met had been closed for about 4 months before the opening of this exhibition for a renovation project, in which I was able to refresh the display cases by replacing the beige fabric with a charcoal one, and also changing the lighting system to LED. So now we have a beautiful, clean look. I hope you can visit the galleries and enjoy the new gallery setup. Let me start the exhibition tour in the first gallery of the show. The shaping of clay was likely humanity's first craft, requiring no tools beyond the hands. In this process, pliant wet clay is kneaded and manipulated to create 3-dimensional forms. Earthenware is produced by firing the clay at low temperatures so that it remains porous and relatively soft. At higher temperatures, the clay vitrifies, resulting in a harder material called stoneware. The oldest Japanese examples of pottery, dating back to between 12,000 and 10,000 BCE, were vessels for storing and cooking food, as well as figurines that may have served ritual purposes. The works in the first gallery of the exhibition all reflect an intimate interaction between clay and the potter's hand, often visible in finger marks. Featuring refined ceramics and other artworks from the museum's Harry Packard collection, this exhibition celebrates the 50th anniversary of this landmark acquisition that established the foundation of the Met's Japanese art holdings. Here, I would like to recognize Julia Meach as the curator who facilitated the acquisition of the Packard collection. I also would like to add that in 2011, Julia published an article in Impressions, Who Was Harry Packard? So please check it out and you can read more about his collecting activities. In this exhibition, by placing ceramics in dialogue with related art forms, including lacquers, textiles, painting, and woodblock prints, the display introduces Japanese ceramics in a broader cultural context. Works from other collections in the Met's holdings were selected to complement the Packard collection and tell a cohesive story about various ways of admiring and enjoying Japanese ceramics. As Victoria mentioned, the special issue this year of Impressions was published to accompany the Met's exhibition. Expertly edited by Julia Midge and with contributions by me as well, it covers both fresh scholarship and voices from the past. Let's start with the first object featured in the Arts of Japan galleries, a large shigaraki jar. Massive shigaraki jars, named for the value of their production, are among the most compelling ceramic works of Japan's medieval times. This one, from the 15th century, was constructed in 4 sections, gradually building up thick coils of clay to form the torso and wide shoulders. The grayish-white material is rich in iron and feldspar, a composition characteristic of shigaraki, and thus imparting a local flavor. In the kiln, which is a wood-fired kiln, it turns a reddish-brown color. This well-fired example shows a warm, deep tone across its unglazed body, while the melting of grains of feldspar speckles the exterior with small white dots that lend texture to the vessel's powerful form. On the fire-facing side of this jar, a layer of dark green natural wood ash glaze formed, including streaks descending from the neck to the base. The landscape of the surface is a collaboration among the clay, the wood-fired kiln, and the potter's hand. Harry Packard was a pioneer collector of Japanese archaeological material and wanted to introduce these pieces to American collectors. Toward the end of the Jomon period, the most distinctive type of dogu was hollow with large protruding eyes, classified as google-eyed or shakoki among modern scholars. This example was excavated in Iwate Prefecture in northern Japan. The head of this dogu was likely broken off from the body as part of a ritual act. These figurines, almost always depicting women, often display elaborate details such as patterned clothing, accessories, like the plug-shaped ear ornaments seen here, or body tattoos, and distinctive hairstyles. The next case is a juxtaposition of a deep pot from the Jomon period with a contemporary artwork. The body of the deep vessel made in the Middle Jomon period, approximately 3000 year BCE, was coil-built before being smoothed and then decorated by rolling twisted cords across the surface, a process distinctive of Jomon pottery. Many major pottery styles flourished at different times during the Jomon period. These most elaborate ones are called flame style due to the flame-like decoration of their rims. Here, the rim rises into an open-work decoration, and the handles were created from rounded clay coils. The contemporary piece by Hoshino Satoru, an internationally acclaimed ceramic artist born in Niigata and now based in Shiga Prefecture, is part of his series Spring Snow, which captures the seasonal beauty of nature, particularly the delicate transition from winter to spring. The curving ridges on the surface of the pot, the artist's own finger impressions, animate the surface of this tapering vessel, which resonates beautifully with the Jomon pot, highlighting similar concepts and the movement of the potter's hand. The next slide again highlights a juxtaposition from the gallery, bringing together the head of the clay tomb sculpture, a haniwa from the 6th century, with the self-portrait of Isamu Noguchi. In 1952, Isamu Noguchi gained access to the kilns of the potter and restaurateur Kitao Jiro-sanjin in Kamakura. Isamu Noguchi began experimenting with ceramics. He also visited Imbe, a region renowned for its bizenware, to study traditional wood-firing techniques, and collaborated with Kaneshige Toyo, who in 1956 would be designated the first living national treasure of that pottery type. While in Toyo's studio, Noguchi created a plaster mold of an abstract mask, a self-portrait, which he used to cast this work. The composition, with a concentrated look and clenching a cigarette stub between the teeth, was inspired by the hand-built, unglazed haniwa of the Kofun period. The third major category of ceramic wares in Japan is porcelain, invented in China during the Tang Dynasty and known for its strength, translucency, and whiteness. Porcelain technology reached Japan about 1610, quickly becoming the medium of choice for refined teaware and tableware. The auspicious decorations on such objects highlight the material's connection to sustaining and nurturing life. Nabeshima ware was a porcelain produced at official kilns in the Nabeshima clan's Saga domain during the Edo period. They were made exclusively to serve as tributes to the shogunal family, senior officials, and the three Tokugawa branch families. The Nabeshima lords began offering them annually in the mid-17th century, and by the 1690s the wares had achieved a level of craftsmanship regarded as the pinnacle of Japanese porcelain production. The auspicious motif of peaches, symbolizing longevity, appears almost three-dimensional at the center, an effect achieved through the masterful gradation of cobalt blue. As the meal was finished, the revelation of this image would have delighted the diner. In general, the theme of longevity was closely linked to food itself, in that nourishing the body was believed to bring lasting reward. In Japan, when a cherished ceramic breaks, especially in the case of a teaware or a precious artwork, it is often restored through kintsugi, meaning gold joinery. The name refers to the gold or silver powder that is applied to seams where using urushi or lacquer, uh, where using urushi as an adhesive. Cracks have been mended, fragments reattached, or missing elements reconstituted to complete the form and return its functionality. Kintsugi reflects the Buddhist concept of impermanence, the understanding that all things are transient and ever changing. Through this technique, the passage of time and the inevitability of decay are not concealed but honored, transforming loss and damage into a new kind of beauty. The act of mending a ceramic heightens formal traits and surface character, lending the work renewed vitality and resilience. Honami Koetsu began producing ceramics after 1615, when the shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu granted him land at Takagamine in northern Kyoto. Collaborating with the second and third generation heads of the Raku family workshop, Koetsu created numerous famous tea bowls. His works gained wide acclaim, inspiring copies and imitations. This piece is a later interpretation of one of his celebrated red raku bowls, featuring kintsugi restoration around the rim. This large tea jar was likely produced around the time of Koburi Enshu, the renowned tea master who served the third Tokugawa shogun Ieyamitsu. During this period, Shigaraki teaware was made not only in Shigaraki but also in Kyoto, where demand was high. The vessel's shape resembles that of a katatsuki or square-shouldered tea caddy, suggesting the refined taste of Kyoto tea practitioners. Its nearly symmetrical form and the washed and blended shigaraki clay, fired to a deep reddish-brown hue, both reveal a high level of craftsmanship. Wood-edge glazes are a defining feature of the Japanese ceramic tradition. The technique is identifiable from the late 6th century onward through Japanese production of sueware, a type of stoneware, begun about a century and a half prior. Ashfall glaze forms within the kiln when naturally accumulated wood ash melts on the vessel's surface. In a later development, ash-glazed wares were deliberately coated with a suspension of the substance. While the earliest tamba wares closely resembled those of nearby Tokonome and were distributed locally, potters in the region soon adopted to a growing market. This imposing jar, one of the highlights of Harry Packer's ceramic collection, belongs to a select group of vessels associated with the Inariyama kiln of the Tamba region. Its short-necked, flaring rim and visible traces of coil construction are characteristic features. The vessel's substantial size, as well as its hardness, achieved through high-temperature firing, exemplify the technical advances that fueled Tamba's rise as a major regional producer. Wood ash produces a glass-like surface with subtle color variations and flowing patterns arising from the interaction of ash, clay, and heat during firing. Each outcome is unique, affected by factors ranging from the raw material's composition to the temperature and oxygen level within the kiln. Viewers often recognize qualities of abstraction in the fluid, irregular designs. Idiosyncrasies of color and texture reflect differences of technique, wood, and soil, giving each region's ceramic a distinct character. These organic effects found particular resonance in the 20th century amid an aesthetics that valued trends and material traits. For inspiration, modern artists also looked to ancient Japanese ceramics, linking their shapes and irregular, inadvertent surfaces with contemporary explorations of texture, rhythm, and abstract form. In 2000, Wada Morihiro, one of the most celebrated clay artists of his generation, was invited to participate in the artist residency program at Shigaraki Ceramic Cultural Park. During his stay, he set out to create thin-walled vessels intended for firing in a single-chamber tunnel kiln in an anagama. Wada constructed his jagged works using a combination of hand-building and mold casting techniques. The resulting vessels, with warm hues of reddish-brown colors and richly textured surfaces, exemplify the distinctive qualities of Shigaraki ware. The next gallery highlights yet another aspect of appreciating Japanese ceramics. I called it the monochrome aesthetics. Green wares, the celadons, and white wares are admired for their refined forms and sophisticated monochrome surfaces. The even application of glaze emphasizes the body smoothness, and the unbroken field of color demands flawless technique. In the absence of painted motifs, the viewer's eye lingers on nuance variations that invite close and contemplative looking. The texture and hue of the glaze, the balance of tone, and the contours of the objects. These ceramics, much like red lacquers, evoke the tactile quality of human skin. Monochrome painting similarly explores the expressive power of a single color. In East Asia, shades of black ink conjure natural scenery, often bamboo, in addition to Zen themes, and stand in close relationship to the tradition of calligraphy. Ink painters translate familiar landscape views and atmospheres into restrained compositions that emphasize shape and contour as well as light and shadow. While remaining recognizable in their subject's matter, these images encourage viewers to reflect on the process of perception itself. Across cultures and centuries, the monochrome aesthetic, whether in ink, porcelain, or lacquer, has prompted such contemplative viewing, revealing subtle surfaces as rich meditative landscapes. One of the highlights of this gallery is this four-legged jar inspired by Chinese yueware celadon, similar to the loop-handled jar also on view in this case, as well as 8th century Japanese three-color ware narasansai. Japanese potters of the 9th century developed lead-based green and olive glazes, ryokuyo. The technique originated north of Kyoto, but soon spread to the Sanage kilns in present-day Aichi Prefecture. The growing popularity of these vessels reflected the tastes of the newly established Heian court, which reorganized ceremonial practices in favor of celadon-like tableware. This four-legged jar is a rare and superb example. While US celadon prototypes were small in scale, Sanage potters enlarged them to the size of a standard storage jar. This type was often used to hold human remains, and our vessel was likely made for that purpose. Similar works have been preserved in Buddhist temples, and only approximately 9 of these survived. Most of them are treasures in Japan, so we are extremely fortunate that Harry Packard acquired this piece, and now we can display it in our galleries. The next case highlights the transmission of the Chinese taste, how the celadon dishes made in the Longshan kilns were later copied in Japan. And the second dish is a beautiful example of a Japanese celadon from the John C. Weber collection. When the Japanese mastered the technique in Hasami, they were able to create this beautiful light blue color, and the large celadon dish side by side with the Chinese highlights the differences between the two celadon traditions. The Negoro dish is also from the Weber collection and dated to 1491. It also tells the story of how Chinese porcelains and lacquers impacted the production of Negoro ware. The folding screens from the Packard collection were inspired by Chinese scrolls that invite viewers to travel through time and space along rivers and mountain paths. This monumental landscape in ink transformed an interior into a vast space for imaginary wandering. The quintessential Chinese theme of the scholar recluse, attuned to the natural world and enjoying its beauty, reflected Confucian values and aligned with the contemplative bent of Japan's ruling military class. And finally, in this gallery, I tried to juxtapose a 16th century triptych with the design of the 8 views scenes with the contemporary white porcelain created by Nagae Shigekazu in 2005 to explore how they interact and how they feel together. And I feel that the monochrome aesthetic brings together these pieces so well. That is one of the best cases of the gallery. The next section of the exhibition explores ceramics with decorated surfaces. The imagery on ceramics often references well-known poems or literary works, and equally widespread are designs incorporating auspicious symbols for happiness, longevity, and good fortune, sharing visual vocabulary with paintings, textiles, and lacquers. Encompassing a wide range of Japanese art, forms and displaying the breadth and depth of the collector's vision, the Harry Gacy Packard collection let us explore visual and literary connections across medium. While living in Japan for many years, Packard built an extensive network of scholars and dealers who informed his understanding of Japanese art. His discerning eye guided his acquisitions, many of which represent masterpieces of their type, such as Kano Sansetsu's Old Plum, which was painted in 1646. The massive black trunk of an ancient plum tree stretches across 4 sliding panels, which were used as fusuma doors, in Kyoto, in Tenshoin, a sub-temple of Myoshinji. Once visible in an adjacent room, at Myoshinji and now preserved in the Minneapolis Art Institute, the reverses of the Fusuma panels depict the Chinese theme of 8 Taoist immortals. The panels showing the old plum were given to the Minister of Finance in Japan in the 1880s, and at that time they were trimmed on the top and on the sides, so they became smaller than their original scale. And later, when they came to the Met in 1975, the Met's showing room was created for the display of the old plum, and for many years you could see it at the back side of the showing room. But for conservation reasons, this time I displayed it in a screen case. The next screen in the exhibition is actually one of my favorites, attributed to Tosa Mitsunobu, showing bamboo in the 4 seasons. Bamboo is a grass, and telling the story of the 4 seasons through the grass is a challenge because it doesn't have flowers. But with providing small hints like dandelions referencing spring, the fresh bamboo shoots of the summer, the ivy climbing on the bamboo to represent autumn, and the snow on bamboo to stand for winter, created a wonderful composition telling the transition of the 4 seasons. And also in combination with the pine, represented by this no costume, a karaori piece from the late 18th, early 19th century. The 3 elements of the plum, the bamboo, and the pine stand for the Shochikubai, the 3 friends of winter, an auspicious combination of elements representing spring, longevity, and renewal. The 3 elements of the pine, bamboo, and plum were combined on these beautiful pair of sake bottles made in the 18th century in Kyoto, where Nonomura Ninsei perfected the use of colored enamels over glaze on stoneware, creating richly decorated ceramics that came to define Kyoto ware. This palette, the blue, green, red, gold and silver, black, and vivid colors on creamy white backgrounds, set the standard for later generations. During the time of Ogata Kenzan, one of Ninsei's disciples, the distinctive color scheme which defined the production of the Kiyomizu ware became very popular, and you can see how these very colorful pieces work together very well with paintings, textiles, and makie lacquers. Another work representing another area in Japan called Takeo ware, old Takeo ware, is a very intriguing piece. The dark brown clay body is coated with a white slip, brushed generously from the lower section of the body up to the mouth to create a blank canvas for the design. Across the front, the branches of a large pine tree gracefully sweep and curve. The pine needles are rendered in iron brown and lightly wedged with a copper green glaze. On the reverse, 3 slender rocks rise vertically, again decorated with pines. This piece belongs to a group of wares long known as two-color karatsu, and now more accurately referred to as old takeo or kodakeo, following the realization that most examples were not produced in or around the city of Karatsu, but rather at kilns approximately 25 miles south in the Takeo area. The next section I would like to highlight in the exhibition is the so-called lion corner, where I displayed a beautiful folding screen created by Hanabusa Icho around 1709. This is actually the back side of the screen. It's a two-sided screen. The front has a scene with bugaku dancers, and the back side is decorated with Chinese lions. The large kimono is actually a sleeping kimono, almost like a duvet, also decorated with Chinese lions and peonies. The lions are symbols of bravery. The Chinese lion was seen, especially by samurai, as the king of all animals, and the peony is the king of all flowers. So together they are an auspicious symbol, appropriate for a wedding trousseau of a high-ranking samurai lady. This was included in the trousseau, probably to be used for the wedding night. The blue and white dish in the corner is also decorated with the same combination of design elements, peony and lions, representing the beginning of porcelain production in Arita. However, if you have a good look, you can see that it's not perfect. This is the beginning of porcelain production, and the Japanese decorator struggled to capture the Chinese design, and the lion is really small compared to the peony and looks like as if it was to crash into the ground, creating a humorous scene. Harry Packard began methodically studying Japanese porcelain in the 1950s, focusing on works produced in Hizen in the first half of the 17th century, traditionally referred to as Old or Early Imari ware, after the port of Imari near Arita. In 1959, the Osaka dealer Serayosuke published the pioneering volume Old Imari Blue and White Porcelain, with a foreword by Yanagi Soetsu, the iconic founder of the Mingei or folkcraft movement, and an introduction by the ceramic scholar Fujioka Ryoichi. The study revealed that the initial phase of Arita porcelain had historically been regarded as a form of Mingei due to their rustic charm. Following archaeological discoveries by the 1980s, a more accurate chronology of Arita ware had been established, providing firm references to aid in identifying early porcelain styles. The new scholarship justified the efforts of a select group of collectors, including Harry Packard, who had ventured into this field before such archaeological data were available. This small dish, which was warped during firing, was published in almost all catalogs and books on early Imari in the 60s, 70s. And this hanging flower holder with a young woman holding a kite or a flag, which was inspired by Kambun Bijin paintings during the Kambun period in the 1670s, was Packard's favorite, who enjoyed the interaction between themes of porcelains and Japanese paintings. The next section of the exhibition is about tea culture. Senno Rikyu, who was born into a merchant family, became the most influential tea master of the 16th century, building on the innovations of Murata Juko and Takeno Jo. He transformed the tea gathering into a refined cultural practice. Juko had introduced Japanese wares such as shigaraki and Bizen ceramics in place of priced Chinese imports, while Jo had embraced everyday Japanese objects in his tea room. Rikyu deepened these aesthetics by incorporating Zen principles and the concept of wabi, an appreciation of simplicity, authenticity, and tranquility. His Wabicha style fostered mindfulness, uniting people and nature in modest, unadorned spaces. By combining domestic wares such as Iga, Mino, and Seto ware with select imported pieces, Rikyu also brought a global sensibility to the humble tea house. These recent gifts from Peggy and Dick Danziger represent Rikyu's taste and will support new installations that explore these aesthetics and present Japanese tea culture within its broader cultural context. One of the highlights of these generous gifts from the Danzigers is this Iga, a freshwater jar made in the Momoyama period, and because of its shape and big belly, it was named Hote. A recent acquisition to the collection is this Oribe covered vessel, a futamono, a very rare piece which I was lucky to find in Kyoto. Invented in the Momoyama period, oribeware, associated with tea master Furuta Oribe, introduced vivid color and dynamic patterning to a tea ceramic tradition previously defined by muted tones. The style, especially the brilliant green glaze, was facilitated by the new Motoyashiki multi-chambered kiln, while the bold brown designs were inspired by Tsujigahana textile patterns. On the interior of this example, white slip provides the ground for a plum and the warbler, likely referencing the chapter the warblers first sung, the Hatsune, from the tale of Genji. This piece was used in tea gatherings to serve food and probably was used to celebrate New Year. Another aspect of tea culture is represented by these Kenzan style mukozuke dishes with bright green color and camellia patterns. These were also used to serve food, probably sashimi. And we have a set of 5 dishes, again from Kenzan's workshop, decorated with plum flowers in very modern design. Moving ahead in the exhibition, the next gallery is dedicated to the taste of commoners, the everyday people. Ceramic production at Seto reached its height in the late Edo period with the operation of large kilns, and their output was diverse, including kitchenware and storage vessels. Responding to the growing demand for ceramics in daily life, artisans devised new products to accommodate the culinary needs of commoners. Ishizara, literary stone plate, one of the novel types of stoneware vessels mass-produced at Seto, was used to serve mixed vegetable or herring stews and other similar simple dishes. The playful and chic motifs adorning Ishizara, symbols of good fortune, flowering plants, and sometimes humorous compositions, reflect the vibrant popular culture of the time. Packard was among the first American collectors to appreciate, study, and gather these vessels and other examples of Minkei or folk craft. This print depicting Otsu gives you an idea how commoners traveled on the Tokaido, and you can see backpacks and simple indigo-dyed clothes, as well as commoners acquiring Otsue paintings. This is one of those paintings, and the special feature of this example is that the ceramic roller knobs of the mounting were made by Hamada Shoji, one of the most well-known Mingei or folk craft potters. As this is the year of the horse, I displayed a Ishizara with a horse pattern, and this one with the human face really looks like an early Picasso composition. The next is a combination of kitchen utensils, a sake bottle, a sake vessel, and the character for sake shown upside down. While people traveled on the Yodo River from Kyoto to Osaka, they got hungry. It was a long trip, so small boats came by to sell sake and comfort food in a very inexpensive mass-produced blue and white wares, such as these kurawanka bowls that were used to serve comfort food and sake while sitting in the ferry. Moving on again to the next gallery, which is going to highlight very high-quality porcelain produced for the daimyo and high-ranking samurai. The best quality porcelain, as I mentioned in my introduction, was created in the Nabeshima kilns, where they had access to top quality kaolin, and the kilns were built in a remote section where they could keep the secrets, especially how to create the overglaze patterns, to themselves. The blue is an underglaze application of cobalt. You can see the thick brush which was used to apply the cobalt. After the completion of the blue design, the dish was fired, covered in a transparent glaze, and the overglaze colors, the polychrome colors, the red, the green, the yellow, was applied after the second firing. And as you can see, it's a very delicate painting process, requires high precision. These porcelains were really, really expensive and accessible only to the high-ranking samurai or the Tokugawa shoguns. Harry Packard loved Nabeshima dishes, and he put together a significant collection of these very expensive, luxurious pieces. One of the highlights of his collection is an early Nabeshima, a small dish decorated with bright colors, purple, yellow, green, depicting a stylized flower. Another masterpiece from the Packard collection from around 1670, 1690 is this dish showing a scene from um, springtime when people set out to celebrate cherry blossom, and you can see a textile curtain which was used to separate a partying group. When young women would attend a banquet or celebrate their wedding, they would put on a party dress, such as this uchikake overrobe with bright red color, decorated with very high quality embroidery, auspicious design. It's a really luxurious, beautiful garment which would have been owned by a young samurai lady and probably would be used to celebrate something like the cherry blossom viewing. This masterpiece in the Met collection, a Kano school screen from the 1620s, shows a scene from Higashiyama in Kyoto, where all kinds of people, including aristocratic ladies, monks, commoners, and high ranking samurai, went out to celebrate the spring. And one of the scenes is a depiction of a banquet where the samurai enjoy delicious sake, food, and on the top right, you can see a wooden board where a chef is preparing sashimi. In front of him, a large saladon dish, and there are other blue and white porcelains, some of them with pickles depicted in the composition, as well as a lacquer bento box that would be taken out to the picnic and used in the outside celebration. A beautiful large celadon dish from the 1640s in the collection is something that you could see in the painting, and we have this fantastic opportunity to say that people represented in the painting would be the owners of these kind of dishes, or the set of tambos with egrets dated to 1639. One of the highlights of the Packard early blue and white collection would have been also used by wealthy people. I couldn't resist to create a small cherry blossom viewing picnic in the gallery, bringing together a lacquer set with the family crest of the Tokugawa shoguns, a large sake bottle, and 5 small Nabeshima dishes. And the lacquer box would actually uh, be filled with delicious food items such as uh, omelets and umeboshi, pickled plum, sashimi, and the largest box with sweets. Of course, these kind of celebrations were very popular amongst the samurai, and also the commoners started to join from the Edo period. In the Edo period, even surimono, the luxurious New Year's greeting cards, were decorated with food items such as sushi or a beautiful sake cup with overglaze polychrome decoration, very similar to a Nabeshima cup in the nearby case in the gallery, again decorated with underglaze blue and overglaze colors. Another surimono, a New Year card, where you can see a similar mukozuke dish for sashimi or vegetables with vinegar. amongst beautifully decorated lacquer vessels that would have been used to celebrate the beginning of the new year. Famous restaurants in the Edo period were advertised on woodblock prints, such as this one, which is basically an advertisement for the Yaozen restaurant in Edo. You can see Mount Fuji in the background, and three ladies entertain two samurai patrons. In the foreground, you see sake cups being chilled in a large ceramic vessel. Also, one of the attendants is serving sushi, probably from a large blue and white porcelain dish to smaller celadon serving dishes. In the same gallery, I displayed a loan, a very important loan from the John C. Weber collection, a hand scroll painted by Moronobu, showing a scene from a visit to the Yoshiwara. This is a behind-the-scene depiction of a kitchen where you again see chefs working with knives, preparing sashimi, and you can see kitchen utensils, including blue and white porcelains, lacquer vessels, trays, and boxes for rice. And this would capture the preparation of food for entertainment taking place in one of the entertainment houses in Yoshiwara. The few cases in the back of the gallery are fitted out with porcelains depicting vegetables. This is a sake bottle, a tokuri in the shape of an eggplant, and there is a beautiful nabeshima dish with a whole vegetable garden, with edamame, with eggplant, and a gourd. The last gallery of the exhibition is a collaboration with my colleague in the museum, Vicky Perry, who is a wonderful ceramic conservator. And we wanted to highlight some of her work, which is also behind the scene, putting together broken pieces, cleaning, and even filling losses on ceramics. So you see a Jomon jar that was broken and she put it back together beautifully. We displayed it with an X-ray so you can see how the pieces were reunited. We also have large-scale photographs with technical details so people can look at production techniques such as the underglaze blue with the overglaze polychromes. So the exhibition's purpose was to introduce 11 different ways to enjoy Japanese ceramics and to celebrate the Packard collection. The Kakiemon dog in the center of the gallery is one of Harry Packard's favorites, and also Vicky Perry did a wonderful job to restore its tail. So with that, I would like to close the talk and hope that you will come by, see the next rotation, which is going to be on display from August, and enjoy the Packard ceramics with all the other artworks in the Arts of Japan Gallery. Thank you for your attention.
Monika, thank you so very much for your wonderful presentation. And I'm sure we all want to come and see the exhibition, which looks wonderful, and all the rotations. So we have a bit of time to ask a few questions, and our listeners, please do send in your questions via the Q&A button. But we already have a few so far, and one of them is, how did you select the objects for the exhibition, given the large number in the Packard collection and the museum's collection?
First, I was trying to come up with a story that I would like to tell in the galleries. And I knew from the very beginning that I don't want to do a chronological display because it would be really like a textbook. So instead of that, I came up with 11 themes. And I looked at our collection. First, I made the selection from the Packard collection, making sure that in each gallery there will be masterpieces. And then I tried to come up with a theme that would include some paintings, some lacquers, some textiles, and really try to teach people how to look at Japanese ceramics from new, fresh perspective and how to appreciate Packard as a collector and dealer.
Great, thank you. Another question we received is, will the later rotations follow the same organization and themes that you currently have?
Yes, the main theme's going to be unchanged, but the light sensitive paintings, textiles, lacquer, some of the ceramics will be changed out. So when you come back in August, you will see the same thematic exhibition, but it's going to be refreshed and with new themes introduced, especially in the section where I'm discussing iconography, where you have the large-scale paintings, there will be major changes.
Thank you. Another question was for those of us who won't be able to make it to New York for the exhibition, will there be a catalog?
So unfortunately, we are not going to publish a catalog for the show, but the impressions volume, which I introduced at the beginning of the talk, serves as a catalog of the exhibition. So I hope that you can read the essays included in the catalog. And I know that Julia Meach is going to include a few exhibition installation photographs in the next issue of Impressions.
And for those of you who are members of JASA, you will be receiving a copy of Impressions if you haven't already gotten it, which is serving as a catalog in essence. Another question was, on the Nabashima dish with the cherry blossoms, what does the band of heart-shaped objects represent?
The Nabeshima dish with the cherry blossom. Let's try to go back. Okay, this is the one, right?
Yeah.
So these here are curtains that people used to stretch around the cherry tree when they wanted to have some privacy. So, for example, high-ranking samurai who didn't want to be seen by the commoners would use curtains to create a little secluded area for their own banquet. So these are curtains.
Interesting. Thank you. Another question came from one of our members asking about, was a Packard collection a donation to the a donation to the Met, or a gift?
It's partial acquisition, partial gift. So the Metropolitan Museum paid a very high price when the Packard collection came to the museum, but because the estimate was even higher than the price we paid for it, it's a combination of purchase and gift. That's why there is a Packard credit line for each work. So he wanted to feature his own name in the credit line.
And more of that will be also detailed, I think, in the issue of Impressions, I believe.
Yes, and also in Julia Meach's article that came out in 2011 in Impressions, there are details about how the Packard collection came to the Met.
Thank you. One of the question was, why was Packard considered a pioneer in the international art scene, or art trade, I should say?
So he started collecting and dealing in Japanese art in the 1950s, where there were not that many Western collectors and dealers on the art scene. And he was experimenting with new types of artworks that were not well known, or they were not even popular in the United States or in the West. Like I mentioned, for example, the early blue and whites, or the archaeological material, the haniwa, the dogu. So when he started to collect those, there were no archaeological findings, very few books published about them, but he had a really good eye, a really good taste, and recognized the importance of these works. And he was sometimes ahead of his time collecting also some of those medieval jars I introduced.
Great, thank you. Another question was, what do you think are the various ways to appreciate ceramics?
Uh, I'm I'm interested in trying to introduce ceramics from various perspectives. So the structure of the exhibition was created to highlight 11 different ways to look at ceramics, whether it's the maker's hand, the edge glaze on the surface, the iconography, the use, or the interaction with food culture. So I'm hoping that visitors who come to see the exhibition will find something of interest in these multiverse of Japanese ceramic culture.
Wonderful. Oh, well, sadly, I think this is all we have time for today. But Monica, what a wonderful talk. I think we've all learned so much from you and look forward to seeing the exhibition and the later rotations. So thank you again for this spectacular exhibition and wonderful talk. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you.
So thank you all for participating in today's webinar, a recording of which will be posted on the JASA website. Our next webinar will be on May 7th with Dr. Janice Katz, who will discuss her new exhibition at the Art Institute of Chicago entitled Emerging from Darkness, Prints of Hamanishi Katsunori. Then on May 13th, JASA will host an in-person visit for our members to the new Princeton Art Museum to view the Toshio Takaezu exhibition. Please see our website for more details, and thank you all for attending today's webinar. Bye-bye.